Welcome to MTG Evolving Wild. Welcome to a very special episode of MTG Evolving Wild, I should say. My name's Mark.
I'm Cody.
And I'm Ron.
And we're here with Dustin of BGE Tabletop. How's it going?
Good. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. And thank you for inviting us. We're actually recording from BGE live, and I'm excited to get into the questions we have.
Taking the podcast on the road.
Before we get into it, is there anything you want to say about the store, or like any kind of...
Tell us about what you do here.
Anything you want to plug? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to have you here, too. It's really cool. I think it's awesome to have more content creators come to the store and do something special. We're BG's Tabletop. We're in the Los Angeles area. We opened about 1.5 years ago as a brick and mortar, and we've been online for about 3 years now. Our whole spiel is leveraging the positive aspects of tabletop gaming. And BGE stands for Board Game with Education. So I used a lot of my background in education to build our store that we have here.
That is really awesome. And I mean, even from the times that I've come in here, I don't know why, but I just like feel a more positive atmosphere. And I'm sure that starts from the store owner and like just, you know, kind of radiating that positivity on everyone else. Yeah. So it's a great atmosphere you've developed here.
I agree. Yeah.
So I'm curious how you got into board gaming or tabletop gaming in the first place. Like, where did it all start?
Probably, this is going to sound kind of cliche, with my grandma. But not because she brought me here to Earth, but we'd play Kings in the Corner growing up. And I just remember that's a big, vivid memory of playing that game, and I would cheat. So I didn't know there was a rule where maybe I did know there was a rule, but I thought it was strategy where I could hold my kings. And I don't know if you're familiar with the game, but holding your kings and waiting until you get them all, you pretty much can win. Instead of having to play them out. It's been a long time since I've played it, but I remember there being like, if you do that, it's kind of like cheating. But yeah, that was a big thing that brought gaming into my life. Then I played like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Digimon, Magic. I did all that growing up. Played like Risk, Monopoly. But as far as like games as an adult, I was reintroduced to modern board games when I was living in DC with some roommates. And then from there, I used a lot of tabletop games in my education, my teaching. And we created an events-based business in Taiwan. So we would run language exchanges where people can come practice their English or practice their Mandarin through tabletop games. We did some kids programming. We did professional development for teachers. So we wanted to actually do all that here in LA when we moved back, but the pandemic hit. So then I'm like, well, okay, I wanted to start a business here in LA, and I wanted it to be related to games. I guess I can do an online game store. In hindsight, it's very difficult to do an online e-commerce board game store on a shoestring budget because you're competing with like big box stores who are able to like buy massive amounts of board games and then discount. That's the kind of the business model that works online. So we had to think about how to be creative with it. And so we did e-commerce model where every game we carried had some sort of lesson plan with it.
Oh, that's
And then
awesome.
from there, we kind of evolved into, okay, well, this business model actually is not going to work because it's too niche. It's too we were selling a little bit of games, and then we're like, okay, let's broaden it, and eventually we're going to open a brick and mortar. So what are some other, titles we can carry that would make sense in a brick and mortar store?
Right. So, I mean, even from that little, background, like you've been all over the place, and I've heard you talk about it before. Like, you mentioned like Washington D.C. was it, and then obviously you ended up here, but you said Taiwan in there too. How did all of that end up happening?
Man, we're going into my Nebraska heritage. So I was born in Nebraska, and growing up, I never left the country. I studied abroad in college, and having that taste of traveling was awesome. And I mean, it's a very true cliche that traveling broadens your horizon. Like I was able to learn a lot more. I have grown as a person through traveling. So my first job I applied to after graduating college was in South Korea teaching. That was the first offer I got. Is like, okay, maybe I'm going to South Korea. I didn't know anything about South Korea. And that kind of just brought me into, I loved education. I loved teaching. I loved traveling abroad. And so that was kind of a big part of what I wanted to continue doing for a while. And then my wife is now a big part of my life, but then became a big part of my life. And we wanted to also live abroad. So we did that. She's from LA, so now we're back in LA.
Nice.
Yeah.
Weird question that kind of popped up since you've been kind of in like different countries and with different cultures and everything. Is like tabletop gaming different or like responded to differently in like these countries?
I would say totally yes, and then also it's kind of the same.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, people love to get around and have a fun experience with friends, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the core aspect of tabletop gaming. You're socializing friends, you're playing. People like to compete too. So when I lived in Taiwan, we would do board game meetup. And beyond the one that we hosted, that's kind of where we got into the business model that we did. And as a werewolf night, and then if you got eliminated from werewolf, you'd just go play other games. There are board game cafes that are pretty big in Asian countries.
Oh,
Okay.
that sounds really cool.
It's a very different business model, and it's kind of interesting. And I not sure if it's the most sustainable because I was in Taiwan for 3 years, so it's hard to know long term beyond those 3 years. I know there's one store that we went to quite often that's still there, but there's a lot of them. But yeah, I would say like it's kind of that same experience, but then like Magic's played over in those countries too.
Right.
Like in Taiwan, I would go and pick up packs, but more so I would see them there like, oh my gosh, there's Magic cards. I remember playing these when I was younger. And they're usually in English, I would say, for the most part.
Okay.
I don't know if you noticed if they had them in like both English or was it just like mainly English only?
Yeah, I think so. I also recently traveled to Italy and they have Italian, like cards in Italian. I think there was recently Wizards of the Coast announced like they discontinued certain languages.
Yeah.
Because one big, I mean, not to make it political, but one big aspect was they discontinued traditional Chinese. And that was a big deal. But yeah, you would mostly see English, but then they would have the additional. I think some of the sets maybe didn't have all the languages too.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I know they discontinued Russian as well, and I speak Russian, but I don't read Russian. But I mean, I can still look back at old cards and practice off there. But that was something that I was like, oh, interesting. Probably again related to stuff going on in the world.
Yeah,
but,
business is probably the reason, right? Maybe
Yeah.
it just makes
Yeah.
business sense for
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, one other interesting thing. So I'm sure you might have noticed running the game store here, Commander is probably a really popular thing that happens. But I hear in a lot of other foreign countries, more competitive 1v1 formats are a bit more predominant there. Do you know if feel like there's any truth to that?
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to answer because when I was living in Taiwan, I was pretty far removed from Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I am pretty, like, I'd have to go back and be like, okay, well, what do I remember them playing? Just from like this kind of is just, I don't know how accurate this gut response would be, but based on my experience in Taiwan and playing board games and stuff, I think Commander's probably fairly popular over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah. That's cool to hear that it's kind of as maybe not as popular, but still
A
played.
global format.
Global format, yeah. So these days, what kind of like board games or card games are you mostly into? I know we were talking a little bit earlier about like poker and stuff like that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like what other stuff are you into?
Yeah, I would say you always hear this. If you want to start a board game store business, you're not going to be able to play board games. You're not going to be able to play games. I probably get to play like we used to meet every Saturday or every Saturday that I could with some friends at the store towards the end of the night, and we play some games. when we'd close down. We'd play a little bit after we close. So I try to play some board games with those friends. We have another friend group that hosts every other Friday. If I'm not too tired after closing here, I'll go play over there. But yeah, I mean, I like board games. I really love RPG games, tabletop RPG games.
Oh,
I didn't
cool.
realize I liked them because I just got into D&D like 3 years ago before we opened here. I wanted to learn D&D, figure out what it's about. I had never played it before. And then I've done Mothership. It's another like a sci-fi horror RPG. I love like GMing and DMing and creating those experiences for players.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun being on both sides of the DM screen, but yeah, it's really an unparalleled experience when you get to just create your own world. I
Yeah.
love it.
It's a lot of improvisation too, which I think I got into D&D. I've known about it and been slightly into it, but probably got big into it around like 2020-ish time. Just had like, you know, me, Ron, a couple other people who were kind of in our circle, and just got to play a lot of D&D then. And there's a lot of fun to that improvisational aspect. And you know, when there's like a whole stat system too, and it's like, oh, I could do this with my character and boost this thing to make this better. Like,
I think in high school when we first got into it, I watched some YouTube videos of people playing D&D, and I decided to bring it into my friend group. I think I pitched it to you guys as Skyrim meets Monty Python meets Whose Line Is It Anyways? And I think I sold it there. You know, we played a few sessions, had a great time. But yeah, I feel like it's a hobby that we've got to kind of carry through us with the years. And that was at least my introduction to tabletop gaming. And that's always been
Yeah,
huge
these
for
guys
me.
actually were the ones who got me started last year playing it.
We gotta play again. It's been too long.
I know. I've been. I think the difficult part sometimes can be like the time commitment over a long scale, but
Right.
like I love even the idea of like, you know, one shot meeting up once and getting that in. But yeah, D&D is like such a fun time. We definitely gotta see about getting that back into the mix. So I know also that you have, or maybe have / had a podcast, or maybe have a new podcast now. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And I know you mentioned it was also kind of related to like the BGE name and like this store. Like, how did that start? And I mean, how did it, I guess, turn into a store or develop into that? I know you mentioned you wanted to open up a, you know, brick and mortar place. But yeah, did the podcast or videocast have anything to do with that, or?
Yeah, so the podcast was kind of went hand in hand with our events-based business in Taiwan as kind of a way to start doing that. I had started the podcast Board Game with Education with another friend who is also a teacher. And so if you go and you search, you can find it. But if you are a listener that does not need to practice English, skip the first 15 episodes or so. Yeah. So we started it. It used to be called Board Gaming with English, and it was supposed to be a script-based podcast where you would learn the language, the grammar, and the rules of a particular game, and then you can take that and play the game in English. And so we kind of pitched it as a way that teachers can maybe assign the podcast as homework and then play the game in class.
That
to
is
practice
really
English.
cool.
But we learned a lot of teachers or educators outside of English teachers, like English language teachers, were tuning in and we're like, okay, well, let's open it up and call it Board Game with Education, and now talk about like how to leverage science-based games or how to leverage games for practicing and developing soft skills.
That is so cool. I listened to a couple episodes, and
Cool.
it's a really cool listen. Like, there's a lot of that, like, kind of, you know, carried through with education and like just getting different types of skills and classes in on it. I thought it was really cool to kind of just get that all wrapped up in one really awesome package. And then so did it just kind of line up with like opening this store, like, you know, just sticking with the same name and same like
Core identity,
core
I guess.
identity, yeah.
Yeah, so the name was kind of it was tough to decide if we wanted to carry the name with us into the store. You think about names like Nike, Adidas, I don't know what else, like LG, right? You don't really know what LG stands for, but if you go dig in, you can find that maybe has a core aspect of like their identity and their mission statement, all that. And so I decided, well, BGEs, you don't have to have any idea what the BGE stands for, but you can have a sense of like, okay, BGEs is that Pokemon store to kids, or BGE is where we go play Magic, and it becomes that like identity as the acronym versus
Right.
like what it actually stands for.
Yeah, that is really cool. I remember like I think I've been in the store a couple of times at this point, and then I like looked up board gaming with education, and then I saw like the podcast connected with it.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, that's what BGE stands for. That was such a cool moment to be like, oh, like, you know, it is one of those things that like at first you kind of don't think about as much, but if you look into it, it's actually really exciting to get more of that core meaning.
It was
out of
another
it.
consumer value store moment for you.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, one of those acronyms. I remember when I first kind of heard about the store, I don't remember how, but I got one of your little square sort of cards that had BGE on it, and I was like, whoa, like this gaming store looks way closer to my house than any of the other ones that I go to. I think I might have actually gotten that card at another game store, and yeah, I ended up coming through, checking it out. I'm like, cool, they got Warhammer here, they got D&D, there's Magic here. I got to tell the boys about this.
Yeah, awesome.
I actually think so. I know Ron definitely told us about it, but I'm pretty sure Cody's dad actually had mentioned this place to us before then.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, because was it in like the Fallbrook or Fallbrook Facebook page or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
He mentioned that to us and like had been asking us about this place, like, oh, have you been there yet? And it's like, oh, we haven't made time to go yet. But then, you know, like eventually now we told him like, oh, we're there and we're like talking with the owner and stuff like that. And he was really happy about
That's cool.
that.
Yeah.
But,
That's really cool.
yeah, like, it is, you know, kind of finding out about it in a bunch of different ways. And then, yeah, when we actually showed up here, it was awesome. Like,
Yeah, that's
It's
really
cool.
cool.
But yeah, because you have so many avenues, I guess it's cool because you can kind of make your own relationship to the name, you know, what it means to you. If you're using it as a way to learn English, that's kind of what the name will sort of mean to you. Or if you're someone like us who just live in the area and want to come in to have a cool place to play some games, you know, it's kind of what we make of it. But it's awesome that you have so many different avenues to get into it.
Yeah.
And it's a nice broad umbrella, and it's a niche, and it's a good niche at the same time.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
so I'm kind of curious. Obviously, we play a ton of Magic the Gathering.
Yes.
Have you noticed maybe any similarities or differences between like Magic the Gathering players versus other people who come into the store, like either in terms of like what products tend to be bought or maybe like how often they'll play, stuff like that?
Yeah. So one challenge for me as a store owner and a person is to be able to separate the identity of like treating our customer base as like, okay, this is the business aspect of it, and then treating it as a community, right? Because as a business, like I have to think, okay, well, we have to be business because we have to come first.
Right.
So when I kind of I want to preface that by like, I don't want to like alienate people, but I do have to like look at these, you know, customer patterns to see what works and what doesn't work. What's been interesting to see as a store owner is customers who will come in and maybe start with, and you kind of mentioned this, you'll start with one game, right? You'll start with D&D, and you'll really get into D&D. But then someone will introduce you to Magic, and then you'll stop doing D&D, and now you'll be a Magic customer. Like you'll never buy any D&D stuff from us, but you'll buy Magic stuff from us. So it's really interesting to see that pattern kind of develop. And then also you only have so much, you know, money to spend. So there's also that aspect that I have to think about from a business point of view. Like, okay, well, you know, this person used to come in and buy one booster box of Magic from us every set, but now they're into Pokemon. So I have to consider that when I'm like trying to
you gotta,
decide
like,
how much to order.
Yeah, juggle a lot of different things and consider who's been. Wow, I didn't think about that, but yeah, like that is. you really got to consider like who's getting into what at what time. Like,
yeah, I really have to know, like, and that's why, like, it's important to me, again, business wise, it's important for me, but also, like, just as a person, I like to, get to know my community, get to know my customers. So I like to ask a lot of questions and kind of get to know people and, like, what they enjoy, why they enjoy it. Again, because it's interesting to me. It's something that I'm passionate about, but also, like, it really helps me make informed business decisions too.
yeah, it lines up really nicely like that because like it almost, I don't want to say it makes you, but like it's a really big incentive to like get to know who the people that come in the store are and who's coming in regularly. With bigger stores, I mean, you just don't maybe have the ability to know every person coming in, or for a more specific store, like something that would only sell Magic the Gathering, like you wouldn't really need to know these things either. You just know you're buying the new set of Magic, and hopefully people will buy it.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully.
But yeah, with something with a little bit more like different things here. Like I know you even had Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, and I know a lot of stores will have Pokemon, Magic, other card games, and not carry Yu-Gi-Oh. But you even got some Yu-Gi-Oh stuff here, so it's really important to know like the people who come in here and what they'll end up buying. And I think that creates more of that positive atmosphere because you're like actively listening to what people are doing and what people are kind of wanting to get in the future. And of course that changes for all of us all the time. Even if we think we know what we want, like 2 months later it might be completely
that's
different.
Also interesting is like one thing I learned very quickly as a retail store owner is there's a difference between consumer like desire and consumer action. Like you'll say something, but it doesn't mean you're actually going to purchase it. So it's like I have to be conscious about those things.
Yeah, no, I've definitely been guilty of, I'm thinking of getting the new Warhammer Leviathan kit, and then I see it, I'm like, okay, maybe not now.
Well, it's here. Like
It's here. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's funny that I mentioned that.
I remember when the first D&D set came out, and Ron was telling me he was going to buy like all 4 of the pre-cons and buy like maybe a collector's box, maybe a set box. And I think you ended up buying 1 pre-con out of everything.
I ended up buying 1 pre-con. To be fair, it's probably like my favorite pre-con. And I ended up getting just the pre-release kit and maybe a few packs.
Yeah.
I ended up building a set cube on that set. So I did end up kind of making somewhat true to my word. But I ended up really thinking I'd get a little bit more financially invested into it than I did, because I realized, well, I got my joy off of just the little product I had here, and expanded in a different direction.
So another question that I'm pretty curious about, and I think it's kind of something that I've been wondering and maybe considering, like, is this a thing or is it just in my head? I think this is a great opportunity to ask, talking to someone who has a game store. With Magic the Gathering, for me, it seemed like in recent times they've kind of been maybe pushing like almost like, here's like this thing that everyone's gonna want to buy, and they'll buy it, and then maybe they won't like continue to be into Magic. Like almost like you buy this one thing, Lord of the Rings maybe, and you play with it, and then maybe like less thought to like longer term players and like player retention than there is for just getting people to buy things. Have you noticed that, or have you noticed that like people will like maybe buy like a Lord of the Rings set and then from that get into Magic even more?
So I'm pretty new in this business, so I have to filter a lot of stuff, and that includes like Wizards of the Coast messaging, includes other game store like gossip and or opinions, right? And some of them know what they're talking about, some of them seem like they know what they're talking about, and then I follow them and I learn, okay, wait, that didn't work for us, right? Sometimes their statements or insights totally work for their situation, but then they don't apply to us. But one thing that I've seen and I notice that is true, period, is Wizards of the Coast likes to throw a lot of stuff at the wall. They try a lot of different things. And then even in my short, about 2 years now of ordering Magic, they do seem to find stuff that does work and that comes through.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of some examples, but I remember just having that feeling recently. I'm like, okay, I remember when they're like trying out a lot of this stuff, and now they figured out this is working, so they're going to keep doing it. And when I say working, that means first and foremost it's working for them, and then maybe it also works for us and the consumer too. Right? We always have to go back to, well, everyone in this is a business, so if this is not working for them as a business, then they may not continue. And what works for a business also may be mutually beneficial for the consumer too, right? That's where you win as a business.
Yeah.
You're providing something that's awesome for the consumer and awesome for the business. Like one thing, I don't know, I'm sure you all are aware, you're a Magic podcast, but they're getting away of draft and set boosters.
Yeah.
right?
I was
Oh,
going
you
to
wanted
just
to
ask
mention
about
that,
how you
yes.
felt about that.
Yeah.
The play boosters.
Yeah. So I think as a store, that's awesome. We'll see how it ends up
Less
happening.
products to carry.
Less products to carry. And, like my shelf, I have my set boosters sitting on top of my draft booster boxes.
Yeah.
It's like, I just want one box up there.
Yeah.
Just give me one box up there. So I like it from that just like design store aspect. I like it. It's less confusing. We're gonna have to retrain customers who are used to that. Price point's gonna be a little bit more, which it's the same, but also if you're buying a whole box, you get 36 packs. So you're paying a little bit more for a full box. But the packs are about the same price as a set pack, I believe. You get kind of some cooler stuff in the plays than you would in a set. So, like, I think it makes sense for the consumer aspect, too. But we'll see when it actually, becomes a thing.
It's kind of one of those things that I feel like it needs to be proven to work because there's so many question marks surrounding it. Like, as someone who's very recently, like, gotten into draft, like, is
And
draft
sealed and limited.
exactly.
Right, playing with all these list cards in draft
Right, or like,
environments.
is that gonna? Because I know usually in set boosters they'll have like, oh, here's like a commander card insert that like isn't legal in the actual set, but like will be if you play it at a game of Commander or something like that. Like, I'm thinking of like Wedding Ring from Crimson Vow.
But sometimes you just get like stuff in the Commander precons too. Like
yeah, literally.
Like I've gotten the Gruul Commander from Kamigawa in like one of my set packs.
So I'm assuming if they're trying to make them play packs, they'll have to do away with any kind of Commander-related
Commander
material.
exclusive.
Unless they're okay with like feel bads of people playing like draft and their first pack they open has like only a mythic like Commander card that they can't play or something. I don't really know what they're gonna do, but there's a lot of question marks for me about like, is it gonna work? And then the other thing is like, we got into Magic after set boosters had already been a thing, where it used to be, I think, just mainly draft boxes and that was it. Right?
They were just boosters.
They're just boosters.
Yeah.
There wasn't any question about which one you're gonna get because there's not a collector, a draft, and a set. There was just draft, and I'm sure there's more to it than this because I mean, like there have been like really throwing a lot at the wall and seeing what works, but it almost to an extent feels like a wraparound way of them being like, oh, we're raising the price of like our entry level thing. But
yeah, I saw a recent store owner make a comment about like this is a good chance to eventually raise the price, right? I don't remember how they framed it, but essentially saying like, don't raise it now, but now you have the opportunity to kind of like eventually raise it to where it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm not Wizards of the Coast. I'm pretty new to this. Like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see
how it all shakes out. But
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully for the best. Hopefully for the best for local game stores and the consumers.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I guess while we're on the topic of Magic product, what are some of the big movers that you see over here? What are some of the hot sellers in terms of Magic the Gathering? And what events do people tend to show up more for?
So It kind of depends. Of course, the set matters. And then we've been a store for a year and a half, so we've had like one whole seasonal like rotation of trends. So
Right.
it's hard to kind of evaluate that beyond just what sets have done well and performed well. And Wilds of Eldraine is very consistent for us. Like this is the most of any set booster boxes we've sold since
Wow.
we've been a store.
It's a
Oh,
great
very cool.
set.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
cool to know.
Maybe Lord of the Rings is up there, but I'd have to look.
I feel like the price point also being lower for Wilds of Eldraine,
Yeah.
but them also like putting really good cards into it also helps kind of with that.
A lot of great reprints with the whole enchantment cycle, I feel, especially for commander players.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's been solid and consistent. Phyrexia was pretty good. Phyrexia was our biggest turnout for pre-release.
Oh wow.
Okay.
And let's see. Some of the stinkers. Brothers of War, we had maybe 6 people come for our pre-release event.
Oh wow.
Commander Masters is a big stinker.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
I mean, I feel like that's mostly just the price that they were charging for.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
Yeah, Wizards of the Coast set it too much as a premium product with, not delivering less than premium products in the actual box.
Commander decks do solid across the board. I mean, there's certain commander decks that don't sell as quick or maybe sit a little bit longer, but usually players get introduced to Magic through a friend group that plays commander, so eventually they want to get a commander deck. It's hard to get those customers into Magic when they've never played before. They're like, oh, I kind of want to start getting into Magic, because a commander deck has a little bit of more of a learning curve than just a starter set.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to sell them a product that
They're not going to be able to play.
they're not going to be able to play with their friend group, right? So we kind of have to preface that. Be like, hey, this is perfect. If you have one other person to practice and learn the game with, this starter deck is the way to go. If you want to jump in and be okay, kind of like being lost a little bit, but you just want a deck to play with your friends, these are some commander decks that are a little bit more simple. The starter commander decks was an awesome product. We did a league for that, where you get any starter deck and then you earn points, and you get to spend those points to either upgrade your deck with singles that we have in the store, or upgrade your deck with a pack, and then you get to use any of those cards from the pack.
That
So that was pretty cool.
is so cool. Oh my god. I love the idea of those starter commander decks being at like a lower price point and maybe a little bit easier for newer players to get into. So much so that I've thought about just buying all of them and then like having game nights where just play with those, because they're very straightforward. I don't know, other than like, kind of like internet rumblings or just like gossip and stuff, has there been any easy tells to like see which sets will be like good and which ones won't be as good, or is it just kind of random?
We find out long after we've already put in our order numbers. So yeah, we do know, but it's like, let's see, Ixalan, was it yesterday they spoiled everything?
Oh,
Maybe.
There were a lot of
Or is it this
spoilers.
Friday? Or I know.
I think the story
dropped.
just all dropped,
Oh,
but
the
I don't know if
story, okay.
all of the cards have come out yet.
Okay.
I know we got all the like keywords we're going to be expecting in this set. Like we got like a bunch of card names.
We got all of the
we'll-
commander decks.
We got all the commander precons.
Like those themes were all
The
spoiled.
themes, yeah, and I saw one of the face commanders, like the black white vampire one.
I think some of the face commanders have been like, isn't Watley one of them? I don't know for sure,
Maybe.
but
I don't think she's one of them.
no, I know she's in like the set and she flips and stuff like that, and turns
So we're probably gonna see a lot more coming out.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess we're recording this October 22nd. Ixalan comes out pre-release, I think November 3rd.
Oh wow, it's really coming
or
up.
November 11th. It's in a couple weeks. So the whole set hasn't been spoiled yet, and we had to place our order like 3 months ago, 2-3 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's tough. Like,
Yeah.
what's coming up next? Is it remastered? What is
Ravnica
the
Remastered.
remastered? So there's a lot of Shocklands in there, but then there's a huge debacle with Amazon having their price for the draft or the set booster boxes their price for those were below any price you could get from a distributor as a store.
Oh my
So
God, are you serious?
they chalked it up to being a pricing error, but it's like,
Oh my God.
it's hard to know for sure what happened because, I mean, all we can do is trust what people have said, but people have seen it at that price point now.
Yeah.
And so that creates like pricing memory to where, well, this set, is it going to be a Commander Master set? Is it going to be like we're stocking? But before that, I was pretty excited about that because everybody's like, oh yeah, Ravnica Remastered. Like, I'm interested in this.
Oh, very excited about the set.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that whole Amazon thing, that's got to be frustrating. Like
That kind of brings up a point, though, that I did want to ask of how do you feel about the lack of MSRP on Magic products?
Yeah. So okay, this is a big thing with Lorcana. Like, that was a huge thing. MSRP and how much we price products for, what's fair, all that jazz. One thing that retail stores, especially retail stores, the pricing structure that most of them need and they use to survive as a special retail store, and this is like beyond game stores, is like maybe you have a candle store that sells like, or Bath and Body store or something. It's called Keystone pricing, and that's essentially however much you pay for it, you double it. So you want to make a 50% margin. That's like excellent for game stores. If you can get a 50% margin on it, hands down, do it. We operate a bit lower just because that's the nature of our industry,
right.
Unfortunately. Because for a product to be awesome for a game store to stock is healthy margins, something that sells consistently, and something that you can stock from your distributor consistently. So just to use Lorcana example, I know this is a Magic podcast. Lorcana is something that sells consistently.
Yep.
Something that does not have healthy margins at the MSRP. So it's that you can sacrifice that if the third thing, you can stock it consistently. I cannot stock it consistently. So I only have one of those things that sells consistently. The margin it's probably the lowest end of any margin that I would consider stocking. But because it sells consistently, I'm happy to stock it. And then again, MSRP, we try to get to MSRP as much as possible, but because of that margin, we probably will price Lorcana a little bit more just to make up for the margin on that. And then we'll go into Magic. It depends on the set. Like, some stuff I get and it's off the shelf the first week, and then I can't stock it because it sells everywhere. And then the margins are like tough because some stuff, it's so heavily based on the market, and I think that's only what works for us is we pretty much price to the market for all Magic stuff. If it's something that we can kind of get closer to, we can price under the market, but it still works in our margins, we'll do that. Like, we're not going to get greedy to where we can make like an 80% margin. A good example is like the Warhammer Collector Commander decks that came out a couple years ago. We were able to price it under market and make a very healthy margin for us. So if we can do that, like, that's awesome if it's a Magic product, but not all of them are like that. Like Commander Masters, if we sold it for market, we'd be negative margin.
Right.
So we have to we have to price some of that stuff that, is healthy margin a little bit higher so we can make up for those products that don't get a healthy margin.
I see.
So it's market price is really what only works for game stores unless you're someone who is a Magic store and you know how much you're going to sell and you can price the same price every single set no matter the product because you're like, okay, this is the margin, we know how much we're going to sell, we know how much we're going to make. For us, we're not a huge Magic store. We carry, it's probably our third best line, but a lot of stores it's their first, right? It's their top one.
Is there anything that hits all three of those, like any game or product, even if it's not like a card game that
Pokemon
hits that?
Pokemon.
Yeah.
Every once in a while we'll have some stuff like we're 2023. We've had 3 sets from the Scarlet and Violet, and the first 2 weren't so hot. The third one's okay. 151 is awesome. But before that, everything for Pokemon. It was like we started ordering Pokemon and we increased our ordering every single set until now. Paradox Rift, we cut it pretty drastically. We cut our ordering by like 40%.
Oh wow.
So because the last couple sets haven't done so well, and I think that's a pretty strong narrative across the board for game stores this year. Yeah.
Maybe
we have a lot. I think even beyond game stores, it's interesting being a retailer and kind of seeing some of this stuff. I think it's beyond game stores and beyond our industry. There's just a glut of product.
Right.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of sales that normally, at least in the last couple of years since I've been a retail store owner, weren't happening throughout the year like they were this year. And it'll be interesting to see how the holiday sales shape up this holiday.
Yeah, because I'm sure also there's going to be a lot of other products like added in, a lot of new things being released like as holiday promos. I'm sure Pokemon will have something. I'm sure Wizards of the Coast is going to put some kind of thing. There's a Lord of the Rings thing, right? That's going to
there's
come
a
out.
Christmas set, yeah.
Yeah.
Bundle, I think the holiday bundle.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
how
No, and I
all
mean
those-
Caverns comes out in December, I want to say.
or it might be November,
It was
right?
November.
Yeah, it comes out.
Yeah.
November?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like early.
Oh, yeah.
early
So, yeah,
November.
even way before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. That's crazy. Have you noticed an increase or a decrease in Magic players in general since the brick and mortar stores opened?
I would say an increase. There's been, I mean, this would be something that Wizards of the Coast, like, I can't even imagine how many data points they have.
Yeah.
And be able to look at that. Like, I wish I could have that access because they also collect a lot of data from game stores too.
Right.
And then to be a premium store, you're required to report sales data. So
Right.
I think overall there's been an increase in Magic players. I know I've had players come into the store who've never played before, players who have played a long time ago and are excited about Lord of the Rings or Doctor Who sets are like, okay, I want to get back into it. Players who it kind of is cool that this is happening is alongside Lorcana, is you're getting a lot of more people into the TCG hobby because their products or IPs that are just interesting to everyone.
Yeah.
Like we've had someone email me recently, they wanted to do a draft with Doctor Who. Unfortunately, there were no draft packs available.
yeah.
Oh my god.
That would be so cool, though.
Yeah. So I was like, well, you can do a collector's pack draft, but it's not really designed for drafts, so you'd have to modify it. Or we
Someone's
have the
gonna open up
decks.
like a serialized card in the draft.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Playing with $1,000 on the table.
Hopefully they brought sleeves.
Oh my god, could you just imagine just no sleeves, like bridge shuffling?
That's how they used to play back in the day.
No bridge shuffling though,
Back in
please.
the old times.
Oh yeah, I mean you weren't a real Magic player unless you had like the scuff marks from like the sidewalk or the asphalt on the back of the card.
Yeah.
It's crazy because really early, like maybe first few years of Magic, like card sleeves were not allowed at tournament play. So like
Oh, interesting.
they you literally couldn't play with the type of like standard protection that we use now. Like, you know, like that's just wild to me. And like, I mean, given back then it was a completely new thing, but yeah, just like times have changed.
I'm glad we've standardized using protection.
I mean, now like every one of my basic lands is like sleeved up, sometimes double sleeved if I'm just like deciding to do the whole deck double
Oh,
sleeved.
I have a whole deck that's that way.
Yeah.
You know, basic lands included.
I do appreciate it when people come in and trade their singles. Like you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I will spot check cards when I do it because it doesn't make sense for me to go to through every single one and check. But I think when you trade and I spot check some and I'm like, perfect. I don't have to look anymore because like even the ones that I spot checked are like pristine. Like,
Yeah.
okay, this is great. 'cause
Right, it hasn't
saves me some
been,
time.
been run over by a car or anything like that. They've all been like, you know, put either straight in a sleeve or straight in a box where they've just kind of sat. So yeah, that is one of the nicer aspects is you know, just getting to keep them all in pretty solid condition.
Yeah.
One thing that is kind of off topic, but one thing I took pretty big advantage of when we went to MagicCon Vegas was they had a lot of people selling cards that were not in pristine condition for huge markdowns. Like a card that,
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, maybe not huge. It adds up, but like maybe like a card that's like $15 was like closer to $8 or $9, and
Yeah.
like, Just
or
like
the Portuguese intuition
Oh
was
my
like
gosh.
half the price.
that was Cody's favorite card.
It is. It was my favorite buy of that weekend.
One of the cool things I got there too was they had a serialized card that was number 99, and the people selling it sold it to me for $99, even though it was a little under what it would have, sold for on the market. But
That's cool.
they had cool stuff like that. But
Didn't you see the number 420 Ragavan?
I did. I saw a couple
that was-
420s.
And what was that selling for? 420.69.
It was selling for $6,900. Yeah,
$6,900. Yeah,
it was
that's pretty funny.
a bit of a joke, but then also everyone who saw that was like, "Oh my god, that's too much money."
It's a
Like,
lot of money for cardboard.
That's almost $7,000 for a piece of
jeez.
cardboard.
Wow.
Yeah.
Would have been 7,000 with tax.
Seriously.
More than that.
So I know we talked a little bit about like WotC and distributors and that kind of stuff. Do you have any kind of like direct relationship with either WotC or specific distributors, or is it like just very like email stuff only? Or
Yeah, so when we applied to be a WPN store, you have to go through an application process. So that's pretty hands-on with a specific person that's in charge of your
Oh,
account.
okay.
And that, I think that lasted about 6 weeks, I would say. And they're just going over things like you have to take an orientation. It's different videos just to watch, and you take a little quiz, and they make sure you complete it and pass the quizzes, and they get you, like bureaucratic documents like your tax ID, like you actually have a brick and mortar, your address, shipping address, all that.
Right.
And then you choose your specific distributor to use.
okay.
So, and they get all our, well, no, do they get our promo stuff? I don't know. They get some promo stuff. So we have the Harvest Tide Festival coming up. That's a 2-headed giant. You get 2 packs of Crimson Vow and 2 packs of Innistrad. And then we were given a free collector's box from our distributor to add to that. So you
That's
get
cool.
2 packs, and a collector's pack. And then you also get some of those collector packs as prize support.
Oh, excellent.
So whoever is our chosen distributor has that box for us that we
Okay.
can claim. And then I have pretty close relationships with my distributors for all the reps from all the places. I mean, there's certain distributors who, email is my preferred contact method, so most of them I chat through email. Then you go to like Games Workshop, and I have a call with them every week.
Oh wow.
So every Thursday I have a phone call with Games Workshop. So, if I can't make the phone call, it's fine. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But yeah. So. Yeah, and it's good to just be in contact. Like our reps are
Yeah.
awesome. So
That's really cool. You probably got to keep up with a lot of different reps for all these different games, but
yeah,
interesting to see that there's like different methods that they all communicate. I think that's awesome that Games Workshop actually has like, someone who calls you every, get into contact over the phone every week. Like that's kind of cool.
yeah. Games Workshop is a very lucrative business, I think, even more so than Magic. And they're old school in a lot of ways, but I think they got things down.
Yeah.
Now. With the rack that we carry, they know that this makes X amount of dollars per store. Like if we carry this rack, we should be making this much money per store.
And it's usually pretty accurate.
Games Workshop's been one of our best decisions we made with our store. We had a lot of decisions or reasons to do it. One, there's not another Games Workshop store in the area. There is now. There's one Games and Grounds. They do a little bit.
Okay.
And then, paint is huge. Like we
Right.
consistently sell paint. So.
Yeah. No, I remember there was a brick and mortar Games Workshop store kind of in the area a little recently near Fire and Dice. But yeah, they closed down a little while ago.
That was a big reason. We're like, okay, well, that one's closed. We're kind of the only place people can go within 15 minutes to get.
Yeah, you guys are definitely the closest place to me for Warhammer.
Do you guys have like weekly Warhammer meetups as well, or Warhammer meetups?
Yeah, we do Warhammer every Sunday.
Okay.
And like a big aspect of our store is casual gaming and creating things that are friendly for beginners too, as well as like bridging that gap between a beginner and someone who's been playing the game for a while. So we do a Kill Team League, which is very much designed for beginners. First week you get to build your models. Second week is paint. Third week is paint. Fourth week is the tutorial on how to play, and then the fifth week is a tournament.
Oh god.
So it's kind of like an introduction to Kill Team. You also get a Kill Team, you get a box, you get paints, and you get some brushes. So you get like everything you need to get started.
Oh man.
Embrace the Nurgle, Mark.
This is not good.
Embrace Nurgle.
I've been juggling getting into like Warhammer a little bit because like I mean it's really good to hear that Games Workshop is so great for a store to work with, and I really enjoy their like lore aspect and all of that.
Yeah,
but
I think they're great. Other game stores
Sure.
are not happy with some are not so happy with
There's-
some of the stuff, but
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that they're great for you to work with.
Yeah,
I should
for
say.
sure.
That
there's gonna be you guys are gonna create a Warhammer podcast next.
Oh god,
Oh,
that's the way this is gonna go.
Oh,
I'm
boy,
surprised
we'll
I haven't
see.
already made a Lorcana one with all
Yeah.
the Lorcana I've been playing too. But you know, an aspect of that is this game store is where I've kind of transitioned into all these other games with. You know, I've already played Magic before, but this is where I signed up to play my first Lorcana events, and kind of it's weird. I started playing Lorcana here and then got into playing Magic here a bit more, but like it's such an easy atmosphere because also you know the thing that you've developed is all these people end up playing multiple games. So you'll talk to some of the Lorcana people. They'll be playing Magic here on, you know, what is it, Wednesday night or Friday night, and then the Magic people might be playing Warhammer. I know
Right.
that for a fact that some of the Magic people play Warhammer. So, and yeah, so it does create this like atmosphere of like, you know, getting into new things with you know, nice people and just a cool vibe. So maybe I will be here for more Warhammer things in the future. Who knows?
So he's probably going to bring me with him.
That's
I
one
know.
game I wish I could get into. I just don't have time.
It's a huge investment that I've
Yeah.
kind of noticed. That's what's been stopping me from getting into it because I love mini painting, and that's the aspect that I kind of really joined it for. But yeah, once I realized, like, okay, I don't just paint one cool guy. No, I need to paint an army of them, and all
Army
the
of
paint
cool guys.
supplies, and all the models themselves. And yeah, it's an investment on all fronts, but it's really cool. I love the lore. It's very rich, and it's one of those games that feels natural because you know I came in from an RPG standpoint, and while it isn't an RPG, there's a lot of flavor to it, and you can kind of
Definitely.
imagine the sort of battles going on, and I don't know, that's my appeal.
And even like yeah, so Warhammer is very intimidating to try to get into. That's what's been stopping me from getting into actually playing the game. But it sounds like you facilitate like a certain level of like, you know, almost an introductory like week to week thing where you spend time painting, you spend time constructing, and then like at the end of it you spend time playing. Is that about
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and kill teams are a super easy way to get into it as well because it's much smaller armies too.
Yeah, as I was gonna say, Kill Team's the perfect way to kind of ease into it. And I don't want to mention my staff by name because I don't have permission, but she's awesome. She's like really great at helping beginners get into it and learn how to play. And then
Cool.
also, again, bridging that gap, we have people who started with Kill Team, started Warhammer here. They learned it. They started our Kill Team League probably 9 months ago. That still come on Sundays, so they know what it's like just getting into it. They know what it's like kind of getting started with Kill Team, and
It's
grow.
really cool.
That is awesome.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll be making a stop here more Sundays.
There you go. All right.
So I know you kind of touched on this a bit earlier, but just to get like kind of more of your thoughts on it, like, so having a game store, there's obviously certain aspects of that where you almost have to keep up with all of the new developments and all the different games. But have you found that it's been like easier or harder maybe to get into some of these hobbies as a seller?
So you're asking like easier, harder for me to maintain those from a business standpoint,
Or
from
more
a
so like just
me
from
wanna
like a
play?
wanting to play from a casual kind of standpoint.
Yeah, I think it's really hard for me to be able to get into new stuff from a casual standpoint. Like with board games, I used to know and learn and play a lot of new board games before I opened the store, and I was happy to sit down with a rule book and learn it and then go teach it to my group of friends that play. Now I don't do that. I'm like, you teach me the game.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm not learning it. Like, I don't want to sit. Like, I used to go to bed with rule books. Like, that was like what I used to do. But I just don't have the bandwidth for it. And then like for stocking new board games, I just rely on a couple content creators that I really admire and I respect, like Grant. He's a board game comedian. He has a cool board game stand-up show. He actually did for a grand opening, he did a stand-up here with board games. So I gotta ask him. He's down to do it again. I just gotta ask him to see when he's available. But I'm part of his Patreon, and he does games coming to retail, and he also shares like behind-the-scenes stuff for that with his Patreon. So I just use him as a resource, and I'm like, okay, he gave this one a 9.5, and I read a quick synopsis of why I'm gonna order 3 copies of this game. He gave this one a 6. And he gives his reasons why, and it sounds like it's a more personal reason, but I think it's one that would do well with like the family gamer. We'll stock some of this too. But I don't get to play often. Like another example, Blood on the Clock Tower. So if you guys are free next Saturday, we're doing a Halloween event, Blood on the Clock Tower. It's a social deduction game. So it's like Werewolf on steroids. And I love this game. I played like 6-7 times, and so I love this game, so I'm gonna make this part of our store and I'll host the game. So this game in like Mothership, I love that RPG, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna host some Mothership sessions as the store. So it's a little bit different. Like, yes, I love it, and yes, it's still work, but at least I get to kind of enjoy the game through work.
Right. That is where the two kind of meet. I know it must be difficult balancing both because, yeah, obviously it's like work, but it's also this thing that you love. But that sounds like a really great combination, just to be able to, like, you know, still kind of put that element in of like the passion and still be able to, you know.
Yeah, I mean, ever since I was a kid, even in my career as an educator, like I love creating experiences for people, and like I love to share. You know, I love Blood on the Clock Tower. I get to share it with others. I love the Mothership. I get to share it with others.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll have to see, but those both sound like awesome experiences. I'd love to come in for one or both of those. And
Can I come in costume?
Yeah, it's also Halloween costume contest.
So
So
it's the
you
same
can-
time. That's fantastic.
Oh,
That
that's
whole,
amazing.
that whole week, yeah.
So one other question we had for you, this one's really up to how you want to answer it, but what is something that you wish that more like customers of game stores knew that they don't typically know?
Let's see. I think one challenge with the industry from a game store standpoint, a game store owner, is most stores are not making a fortune.
Right.
I'm in a year and a half, and I still I'm not taking a salary. I started to pay myself about $200 every other week, and that ended up being too much because there's a lot of things that kind of piled up, and like, oh crap, we're in a tough spot right now. So I stopped paying myself. Probably gonna wait another close to a year before I start to do it again. So that's a big thing. Like, for the most part, I mean, some game stores are new. Maybe they're kind of learning what price points work, and they're trying to figure that out. But like, margins are very tough for game stores. I mentioned the especially restore keystone pricing. Like, some game stores are able to do that, and we do that for the most part. Like, I would say 40% of our products, probably less. 45% margin is like where most of our products are. And that's pretty decent. Like, if I can get to 50%, I'm like, yes. Yeah, I'll do it if it's selling.
That's what we need.
Like, I'll do it. But yeah, I mean, that's a big thing. But again, you got to do what works for you personally too. Like, we have, like you mentioned our community and all that, like, super supportive for our store too, right? Not beyond just like the aspect of playing and bringing new players, but they're super supportive and supporting our store, and they understand that, like, okay, yeah, I can get this set booster box for $20 cheaper online, but this $20 is going to growing a community that I enjoy and support. So that's like, just keep that in mind. I mean, I understand one thing too that I always have to remember, or I live by as a store, is like, I don't need the whole pie. I just need enough to eat, right?
Yeah.
I need enough to be full. So I know our customers don't buy everything from us, right? You're going to get some stuff online. You're going to get some stuff like a lot cheaper online. And it's just like, well, this product's not working for you right now, but hopefully it works for someone in our store in the future.
Yeah, no, that's really great advice. I mean, I work at a local music store, and so I kind of feel a lot of the same sort of feats. Sure, you can maybe buy this book, this instrument online, and maybe save a little bit, but you're paying for being part of the community, for being able to go and talk to the staff for recommendations, for having a space to play, for all of the other things that kind of come with being a part of the community. So I have a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I really, I mean, hearing your thoughts on all of that, like, I really appreciate having a game store run by someone with that in mind, because like, it really does feel like you're giving to the community, you're giving to us who like come in and enjoy and have a great time. And like, yeah, I mean, it makes us want to give back. Like, we love supporting you. We love keeping this place open and coming out to it and doing what we can, because it's weird. I feel like, I mean, I'm sure it's different for all kinds of people, but like when you find a space that works for you, like you really want to cultivate it and stick with it. And I think this is like the closest, or maybe the space for me, where it's like I come in here and I like want to actively just keep being here.
Like I don't know if you know about third places and everything, but it feels like, especially living in suburban LA, kind of outside of it, we don't have too many places like that. And so having an awesome community to kind of come sit down and play after work or something is really, really invaluable, and it's something that I think we need a lot more of.
Yeah, one thing that I didn't realize before opening a store is how big part of people's lives will become. We do kids D&D, so we do Dungeons and Dragons for kids once a week, and like that is the thing that some of these kids look forward to each week. We had one kid like mention a DM. It's like, will you be our forever DM? Like, will you always DM for us? Like man, like that DM's a big part of this person's life, and it's an outlet for those kids. It's an outlet for adults as well. So that's really cool.
Something I wish I had growing up.
Seriously.
I was like, I went to the store often, but I never felt like that was a community for me. Yeah, but it was still kind of like my group of friends had our community. We would go together, and that was kind of cool, but never like the store facilitating that so much.
Right. It always felt more like a storefront first and foremost, and then, I guess we can also kind of have these tables out as a loss leader. That's always kind of what it felt like. But here it feels different. It feels like the kind of like the community and the play area and the groups are kind of what drive the business. So you kind of tend to prioritize that same thing that makes local game stores unique. That's what gives them the edge over places like Amazon, who honestly I just kind of hate buying from.
Right?
Yeah, you mentioned that loss leader. That's one really interesting conversation with game stores, is like play space and how to use it. For us, it's always been a pillar of our business model, and not so much like magic events or con events, but our kids programming. Like that's a big part of what we do in our summer camps, our kids D&D. But because we do that, it helps us leverage the play space for Lorcana events, for magic events, because we're not a TCG store where we rely on big turnouts, heavy play, huge prize support, right? We don't have the space for that. So we have to think about, okay, well, we are a casual store. What can we do that helps support what we're trying to achieve? And that's like our Lorcana League. You don't get points for winning. I mean, you get an extra stamp for winning, but really you get points for like coming, playing, having fun,
participating,
dressing up. Yeah.
Are there any fun Disney characters to dress up as?
Yeah, that's our last day of the Halloween costume contest is next Tuesday, our Lorcana nights. So it's gonna be Disney themed.
I already know some people who are gonna come out all like all the way dressed out. Yeah. No,
you're one of them, right, Mark?
You know what's funny? I mean, there's one of the points on the old Lorcana League was wearing like a Disney related thing.
Yeah.
And the only Disney thing I have is like this old Disneyland jacket. So I kept bringing it in. I'm like, point please. Like, here's my jacket. And some days it was like too hot to even wear it. So I was just like, here it is.
Here it is, tied around my waist. Yeah.
But then like, you know, it would be really fun to like kind of get more Disney stuff and like it come decked out in that and match the deck. But
You only have to go to the happiest place on earth.
not that
You
far
don't actually
away.
you don't actually have to go there either.
Do you guys have any more last minute questions?
I think I'm good.
Yeah,
I mean, this has been a really
I think we
informative
touched on everything.
experience. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing your space, your time, and your mental bandwidth with us.
Yeah,
It's been
for
really
sure.
great.
Thank you guys.
We
Yeah.
really appreciate it. It was great getting a look at like kind of the behind the scenes, a little bit more of what you kind of see from behind the counter almost, and
Getting to see how the sausage is made.
before we call it an episode, is there anything else you want to talk about? I know we kind of did that at the beginning, but I know I don't know if it's still going, but I know you were talking about doing some kind of talk with other game stores and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, again, I appreciate you guys for having me on the show. This is a lot of fun. I love talking shop, even if it, like I love to make time and space for this. It's a lot of fun. BGE's Tabletop. We're in Los Angeles. We are doing a show with 2 other game store owners in the LA area, so you're going to get a lot more behind the scenes look at everything. Because we are planning a board game or tabletop gaming convention in 2025. So this is kind of like a podcast that's kind of going with it, but the podcast is not just convention related, it's all tabletop gaming related.
Oh, very cool.
So I think we're planning for that to release in January of 2024. And the convention is not till June 2025. So we're a ways away from that convention.
yeah.
But
Looking forward to it.
yeah.
I mean, I know everyone changes their mind as time goes on, but that is like something I am like almost definitely going to be at, like regardless. Like,
Yeah.
local
Awesome.
convention sounds so fun, and looking forward to that podcast coming out soon. I know I'll be listening into it, and hopefully hearing some more behind the scenes of how the community runs as a whole. But
Yeah.
Cool.
again,
Yeah,
it was
appreciate
great.
it. Thank you guys.
Great having you
thank you.
on.
Thanks for
Great
coming.
talking with us, and yeah, maybe we'll do it again someday. It was awesome.
Sounds
I
good.
agree.
Thank you guys.
All right, with that, I guess we are signing off here.
All
All right. Adios.
Peace out, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Bye bye.